The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chambers sparkled with thousands of lights. Each light represented a different world, a different species that bowed to the Council's rule. Today was special. Today marked exactly 1,000 years since the humans had been wiped out. Ambassador Tae-min of the Velkan Empire stood at the center podium, his scaled green skin gleaming under the chamber lights. His long tail swished with pleasure as he looked out at the crowd of alien dignitaries. Representatives from dozens of species had come to celebrate this anniversary. Friends and allies, Tae-min began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Today we remember the end of the greatest threat our galaxy ever faced. 1,000 years ago, the last human ship was destroyed. The last human voice was silenced. Forever. The crowd cheered. The bird-like avians flapped their wings in excitement. The rock creatures called granite folk stomped their heavy feet. Even the floating gas beings known as whispers glowed brighter with joy. Tae-min raised his clawed hand for silence. But let us not forget why this day matters. Let me tell you again about the humans so we never forget why they had to die. He activated a holographic display showing old images of humans. The crowd laughed at the strange, pink-skinned bipeds with their tiny teeth and weak-looking bodies. Look at them, Tae-min sneered. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. They were so weak that they needed tools for everything. They could not even breathe in space without machines to help them. Commander So Young of the Hegemony Defense Force stepped forward. She was tall and thin, with forearms and blue skin covered in intricate tattoos. I have studied their final battle, she announced. When our fleet surrounded their home system, they begged for mercy. They sent messages pleading for their lives. More laughter filled the chamber. The crystalline beings called Japhirians chimed like broken glass, their version of cruel laughter. They were so emotional, So Young continued. They cried, they screamed, they spoke of love and hope even as their ships exploded around them. What foolish creatures they were, wasting energy on feelings instead of fighting properly. The crowd agreed loudly. Emotions were considered a weakness by most galactic species. The humans had been mocked for centuries for their strange habit of caring about each other. Tell them about their ships, called out a voice from the crowd. So, Young smiled, showing her sharp teeth. Their technology was primitive. While we had energy shields and quantum weapons, they still used metal hulls and chemical explosives. Their largest warship was smaller than our scout vessels. It was hardly a battle at all. The celebration continued for hours. Each species shared their favorite stories about human weakness. The metal beings called Circuit Lords spoke about how humans were afraid of electricity. The ice dwellers from the frozen rings laughed about how humans died in cold temperatures, but, in the deepest levels of the Council archives, ancient keeper Wu Jin was not celebrating. The old scholar had 4 eyes and skin like tree bark. He had spent his long life studying the galaxy's history, and something bothered him about the human records. Wu Jin pulled up the official battle reports from the Sol system, where Earth had been located. According to the records, the human fleet had been completely destroyed. Their planet had been burned to ashes. Not a single human had escaped, but as Wu Jin read more carefully, details did not match. The energy signatures from the human ships were wrong. The battle formations made no sense. Most strange of all, the humans had been sending coded transmissions right until the end. But these were not pleas for help. They were countdown sequences. Countdown. To what? Wu Jin muttered to himself. He pulled up the actual battle footage, recordings that few beings had seen in centuries. The quality was poor, but Wu Jin enhanced the images with modern technology. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen in shock. The human ships were not fighting randomly. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers following invisible music. When they were hit, they exploded in patterns that looked almost planned. And in the final moments, just before the last ship was destroyed, Wu Jin saw something impossible. The ship's hull opened, and thousands of small objects shot out into space. They were too small to be escape pods and too fast to be debris. The objects disappeared into the darkness between stars, moving in directions that would take them far from any known space lanes. Wu Jin sat back in his chair, his mind racing. He had studied warfare for over 500 years. He knew the difference between a desperate last stand and a strategic withdrawal. What he had just watched was not the extinction of humanity. It was an escape. But if the humans had escaped, where had they gone? The galaxy's sensors could detect life signs across vast distances. Every star system was monitored. There was nowhere to hide an entire species, unless they had gone to the one place no one ever looked. Wu Jin pulled up star charts of the areas beyond the galactic rim, the empty void between galaxies where no life could survive. Or so everyone believed. He began calculating trajectories, trying to figure out where those small objects might have gone. Above him, the celebration continued. Tai Min was now telling the crowd about human mating habits, causing fresh waves of laughter. The aliens were so busy mocking the dead that none of them noticed the ancient keeper's growing fear, because Wu Jin had realized something terrible. The galaxy had spent 1,000 years telling itself that humans were weak and pathetic. They had built their entire sense of security on the belief that the greatest threat was gone forever. But what if they were wrong? What if the humans had not been destroyed but had simply left? What if they had spent the last 1,000 years not dying in shame but planning their return? Wu Jin's hands shook as he typed new commands into his computer. He needed to search deeper, to find out what really happened at Sol System, because if his suspicions were correct, the galaxy's 1,000-year celebration might actually be counting down to its own doom. The laughter from above grew louder, but Wu Jin no longer heard it. He was too busy discovering that everything the galaxy believed about the human extinction was a lie, and if the humans were still alive somewhere in the dark between stars, they would have had a very long time to plan what came next, a very long time to prepare for their return. Captain Jiho opened his eyes for the first time in 1,000 years. The hibernation pod around him hummed softly as systems checked his vital signs. Green lights blinked on one by one, showing that his body was healthy and ready for duty. He sat up slowly, his muscles stiff from the long sleep. Around him, thousands of other pods were opening. Men and women emerged, stretching and looking around with wonder. They had gone to sleep as refugees fleeing a burning galaxy. They were waking, up as something else entirely. Status report, Jiho said, his voice rough from disuse. All systems green, Captain, replied the ship's artificial intelligence. The Phoenix fleet has successfully completed its 1,000-year hibernation cycle. Total population, 847 million humans across 2,000 vessels. Jiho walked to the command center, his legs getting stronger with each step. Through the massive viewing window, he could see other ships stretching into the distance. Each one was the size of a city, carrying hundreds of thousands of sleeping humans. They had drifted in the void between galaxies, invisible to any sensors, waiting for this moment. Admiral Ha-Yun was already awake and waiting for him. She was older than Jiho, one of the few who had been adults during the original war. Her silver hair was pulled back in a military style, and her eyes held the weight of centuries of planning. The signal came through 12 hours ago, she told him. Our deep cover agents have confirmed it. The galaxy has grown soft. Their military forces are spread thin across thousands of worlds. They have forgotten how to fight a real war. Jiho nodded, studying the tactical displays. How many of our people made it through hibernation? 97% survival rate, Ha-Yun replied. Better than we hoped. The genetic therapy worked. Our children and grandchildren are stronger than we ever were. She was right. The people waking up around them were not the same humans who had fled the galaxy. 1,000 years of careful genetic modification had made them faster, smarter, and more resilient. They could survive in harsh environments that would kill normal humans. Their lifespans were longer, their reflexes quicker. What about the industrial ships? Jiho asked. Admiral Ha-Yun smiled. Come and see. They took a transport to the UES Forge, one of the massive factory ships. Engineer Dae-Wan met them at the docking bay. He was young, born during the long journey, and his enthusiasm was infectious. Admiral Captain, welcome to the future, he said, leading them through corridors lined with manufacturing bays. We have been building non-stop for 800 years. Our technology is now centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy. They stopped at an observation deck overlooking the main construction bay. Below them, automated systems were assembling warships, unlike anything that had ever existed. The vessels were sleek and deadly, their hulls made from materials that could bend space itself. Dark matter armor, Daewon explained. Quantum weapon systems, faster than light drives that do not require hyperspace lanes. We can appear anywhere, in the galaxy without warning. Jiho watched as a completed ship moved toward the launch bay. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. How many ships do we have? 50,000 combat vessels, Daewon replied. Each one more powerful than the entire fleet that originally attacked Earth. Plus support ships, transports, and specialized craft. We are ready for anything. Admiral Ha-Un activated her communication device. All fleet commanders, report to the UES Resilience for final briefing. Operation Homecoming begins now. Within hours, the command ship's briefing room was filled with humans who had been chosen to lead the return. Captain Sobin commanded the stealth forces. Colonel Minho led the intelligence division. Dr. Yuna was their chief strategist. ATU, brilliant woman who had spent centuries planning this moment. The galaxy believes we are extinct, Dr. Yuna began, showing holographic displays of alien worlds. They have built their entire civilization on that belief. Their defenses are designed to fight each other, not us. They have no idea what is coming. She highlighted key systems on the map. Our agents have been feeding us information for generations. We know the location of every military base, every shipyard, every command center. We know their schedules, their patrol routes, their communication codes. Captain Sobin leaned forward. What about civilian populations? Are we going to repeat their mistakes? Admiral Ha-Un's expression was firm. We are not them. We will not commit genocide. This operation is about liberation, not revenge. Many species in the galaxy are oppressed by the Council. They will welcome us as liberators. Dr. Yun-Ah nodded. Our psychological warfare division has been working on this for centuries. We know exactly how to break their morale without massive bloodshed. Fear is a powerful weapon, and they have forgotten how to face it. The briefing continued for hours. They reviewed target lists, backup plans, and contingencies. Every detail had been planned and replanned countless times. Nothing was left to chance. There is one more thing, Admiral Ha-Un said as the meeting ended. All of you were children when we left the galaxy. You have never seen Earth, never walked under an alien sun. Some of you might wonder if this fight is worth it. She paused, looking each of them in the eye. I want you to remember why we are here. The aliens did not just try to kill us, they tried to erase us from history. They wanted to make it as if humanity had never existed at all. We survived not just to live, but to prove that we cannot be destroyed. Captain Jiho stood up. When do we begin? The advanced scouts left an hour ago, Ha-Un replied. They will position themselves at strategic points throughout the galaxy. In 72 hours, we will know if our agents are still in place and if our intelligence is accurate. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. Throughout the Phoenix fleet, nearly 1 billion humans listened to her words. People of Earth, children of humanity, the long sleep is over. We have drifted in the dark for 1,000 years, but we have not been idle. We have grown stronger, smarter, and more united than we ever were. The aliens believe they destroyed us, but they were wrong. We are humanity, and we do not break easily. The cheers that echoed through the fleet could be heard across the vacuum of space. After a millennium of exile, humanity was finally going home, and they were bringing gifts that the galaxy would never forget. On the trading world of Nexus 7, Kyung-ho felt the small device in his pocket vibrate 3 times. After 200 years of waiting, the signal had finally come. He finished his conversation with the Velkan merchant, smiled politely, and walked calmly to his private office. To everyone who knew him, Kyung-ho was just another successful trader. His shipping company moved goods between dozens of worlds, and he was known for his honest deals and fair prices. What they did not know was that every trade route he had established over the centuries was carefully planned. Every warehouse he owned was positioned near key military installations. Every employee he had hired was actually a human agent. He activated his secret communication device and sent out a coded message. Across the galaxy, hundreds of similar messages went out. The ghost network that had taken centuries to build was finally awakening. On the crystal world of Zephyr, Dr. Yunji received her signal while studying in the Great Library. For her entire adult life, she had posed as a researcher interested in crystalline biology. She had published papers, won awards, and earned the respect of her alien colleagues. But her real work had been mapping the frequency patterns that could shatter the living crystal cities. She closed her research files and opened a hidden folder on her computer. Inside were the results of 2 centuries of careful study. She knew exactly which sonic frequencies would cause the crystal beings pain, which ones would knock them unconscious, and which ones would crack their city structures. More importantly, she knew how to broadcast these frequencies through their own communication networks. Yunji sent her activation confirmation and began preparing for her real mission. On the military world of Fortress Prime, Commander Minho sat in his office, reviewing fleet deployment orders. To his alien colleagues, he was a dedicated communications director who had served the Galactic Defense Command faithfully for decades. His efficiency and attention to detail had earned him rapid promotions and access to classified information. What they did not realize was that every order he had helped write, every deployment he had recommended, and every communication system he had designed contained hidden weaknesses. For 50 years, he had been slowly moving alien military forces away from strategic positions. He had created communication delays that would prevent rapid response to attacks. He had even designed backup systems with secret shutdown codes. Min Ho activated his secure terminal and began sending new orders. To any observer, they looked like routine maintenance and training schedules. In reality, they were pulling the galaxy's best military units away from their home bases and scattering them across distant sectors. The plan was working perfectly. On the pleasure world of Hedon 7, Agent Bo-Ram was attending a party with high-ranking alien officials. She had spent decades building relationships with the galaxy's elite, using her position as a cultural attaché to gather intelligence. Her cover was perfect. She genuinely enjoyed alien art and music, and her enthusiasm was infectious. She chatted with a granite folk senator about sculpture. Her neural implant received the activation signal. Without changing her expression or missing a beat in the conversation, she began mentally reviewing her target list. By the end of the evening, she would have planted listening devices in a dozen different locations and stolen access codes from 3 separate military databases. "You know," she said to the senator, "I would love to see the new military art installation you mentioned. Perhaps you could arrange a private tour." The senator was delighted to help such an enthusiastic fan. He had no idea he was giving a human spy access to classified military facilities. Fleet Captain So Young commanded a small reconnaissance vessel that appeared on alien sensors as nothing more than a drifting asteroid. Her ship was one of hundreds, positioned throughout the galaxy, each one disguised and waiting. Her crew had been in hibernation for the past 50 years, allowing the ship to drift naturally through space without showing any signs of life. Now they were awake and moving. Using technology that bent light around their hull, they could approach any target without being detected. Their sensors could penetrate the most advanced alien shields, and their weapons could disable entire fleets without firing a shot. So Young's first target was a communication relay station orbiting a gas giant. The station coordinated military traffic for an entire sector. Its destruction would create chaos and confusion, but her orders were more subtle than that. Instead of destroying the station, her team quietly boarded it. They planted devices that would allow humans to intercept and alter any message that passed through the relay. They also installed a virus that would slowly corrupt the station's databases, creating false information that would spread throughout the alien communication network. When they finished, the station looked completely normal. The alien crew had no idea that their facility was now under human control. Similar operations were happening throughout the galaxy. On Kelton 4, Agent Dae-hyun used his position as a maintenance supervisor to plant explosives in the main power plant. The explosives would not detonate immediately. They were designed to create power failures that would look like accidents. On the ocean world of Aquatica, scientist Young-soo released a bioagent into the water supply. The agent was harmless to most species, but it would make the aquatic aliens who lived there extremely sick for several weeks. This would force them to abandon their underwater cities and move to temporary shelters on land. Every action was small and seemingly unrelated. A power failure here, a communication breakdown there, a group of sick aliens somewhere else. To any individual observer, these looked like random problems that happened in any large civilization. But the humans had planned every detail. The power failures would happen at specific times to disrupt military exercises. The communication breakdowns would prevent alien commanders from coordinating their responses. The sick aliens included key personnel who would be too ill to perform their duties during the critical first days of the human return. In the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the galaxy's edge, Woo Jin continued his research into the human extinction. He had been working for days, barely stopping to eat or sleep. The more he discovered, the more convinced he became that something terrible was about to happen. He had found inconsistencies in dozens of historical records, communications that had been altered, sensor readings that did not match, battle reports that contradicted each other. Someone had spent enormous effort to hide the truth about what happened at Sol System. But who would have had access to all these records? Who could have made such extensive changes without being detected? The answer came to him slowly, and it filled him with dread. The only beings who could have altered so many different databases were members of the Galactic Council itself. They had deliberately covered up what really happened to humanity. Woo Jin tried to contact his supervisors, but the communication system was down for maintenance. He tried to access higher-level databases, but his security clearance had suddenly been suspended. Even his personal transport had developed mechanical problems that would take days to repair. He was trapped in the monitoring station with the most important discovery in galactic history, and no way to warn anyone. Above him, the celebration of humanity's extinction continued. The aliens laughed and drank and told stories about human weakness. They had no idea that human agents were listening to every word, recording every face, and preparing detailed files on each person who had participated in the mockery. The ghosts were about to become real, and they had very long memories. The first human ship to appear in galactic space materialized above the mining station at Proxima 7. The station's sensors registered it as an unknown contact, but before the alien crew could react, the ship was gone. It had vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only confused readings on their instruments. Commander Ye-jin smiled as her stealth cruiser moved away from the station. The brief appearance had been intentional, a test to see how quickly the aliens would respond to an unknown contact. The answer was disappointing. It took them nearly 10 minutes to even begin investigating the sensor reading. "They have grown soft," she reported to Admiral Ha-yoon. "Their reaction times are terrible. Their sensors are outdated. This will be easier than we expected." Across the galaxy, similar tests were being conducted. Human ships appeared and disappeared near alien installations, gathering data and testing responses. In every case, the results were the same. The aliens had spent so long at peace that they had forgotten how to be ready for war. Admiral Min-soo stood on the bridge of the UES Remembrance, watching as his massive fleet prepared for the first real engagement. His ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Around him, hundreds of similar vessels waited for his orders. But this was not going to be a battle of destruction. This was going to be a demonstration. "Target the military complex on Kepler Station," he ordered. "Non-lethal approach. We want them alive and unharmed but completely helpless." The Remembrance moved toward Kepler Station, home to the Galactic Defense Command's 3rd Fleet. The station housed 50,000 alien military personnel and was considered one of the most secure facilities in the galaxy. The aliens detected the approaching human fleet when they were still an hour away. Alarms sounded throughout the station as Admiral Zakhtar of the Defense Command tried to organize a response. Unknown vessels, you are approaching restricted space, he broadcast. Identify yourselves immediately or we will open fire. Admiral Minsu opened a communication channel. His image appeared on screens throughout the station, showing a calm, human face that many aliens recognized from historical records. I am Admiral Minsu of the Human Defense Fleet, he said simply. We have returned. The effect was immediate and devastating. Panic spread through the station as aliens realized they were facing an enemy that was supposed to be extinct. Some tried to flee in escape pods. Others frantically sent messages to their home worlds. A few actually fainted from shock. Admiral Zakhtar managed to keep his composure. Impossible. The humans are dead. You are some kind of trick. If that is what you believe, then prepare to defend yourself, Minsu replied. The station's weapons opened fire, sending hundreds of energy blasts toward the human fleet. The humans did not even bother to raise shields. Instead, their ship simply bent space around themselves, causing the energy beams to curve harmlessly around them. Our turn, Minsu said quietly. The human ships fired a single coordinated pulse. It was not a weapon designed to kill or destroy. Instead, it was an electromagnetic burst specifically tuned to alien technology. Every piece of equipment on Kepler station suddenly stopped working. The lights went out. The artificial gravity failed. The air recycling systems shut down. In the space of 3 seconds, the most secure military facility in the galaxy had become a helpless metal shell drifting in space. This is Admiral Minsu to all personnel on Kepler station, he broadcast. Your weapons are disabled. Your communications are down. Your life support systems will fail in 6 hours. However, we are prepared to restore all systems if you surrender peacefully. He paused, letting them consider their options. You have treated us as if we were weak and pathetic creatures. Today, you learn the truth. We are humanity, and we have returned to reclaim our place in this galaxy. The surrender came within minutes. Similar scenes played out across dozens of systems. Human fleets appeared without warning, overwhelming alien defenses, not through brute force, but through technological superiority. Ancient human colonies that had been turned into alien research stations were liberated in minutes. Military bases that had taken decades to build were captured without a shot being fired. Captain Subin led the liberation of New Geneva, a former human mining world. The Velkan occupiers had turned it into a slave labor camp, forcing captured aliens from various species to work in dangerous conditions. When Subin's ships arrived, the guards tried to use their prisoners as human shields. You cannot attack us without killing innocents, the Velkan commander broadcast. Subin's response was swift and precise. Her ships released a gas into the atmosphere that was completely harmless to most species, but caused Velkans to fall into a deep sleep. Within hours, the entire guard force was unconscious, and the prisoners were free. This is Captain Subin of the Human Liberation Fleet, she announced to the freed prisoners. You are no longer slaves. Any species that wishes to return to their homeworld will be transported there safely. Any who wish to join our cause are welcome. The psychological impact of these victories spread faster than any military advance. News of humanity's return raced through communication networks that the aliens thought were secure, but were actually controlled by human agents. On the crystal world of Zephyr, Dr. Yunji activated the sonic weapons she had spent centuries preparing. The crystalline beings who had laughed at human weakness suddenly found their cities resonating with frequencies that caused intense pain. They fled into the countryside, leaving their advanced technology behind. On Nexus 7, Trader Kyung Ho revealed his true identity and took control of the planet's shipping networks. Every cargo vessel, every transport ship, every supply line that connected the core worlds suddenly belonged to humanity. The aliens began to understand that they were not facing an invasion. They were facing the execution of a plan that had been centuries in the making. Admiral Ha Yun stood in the communication center of the Phoenix fleet, watching reports pour in from across the galaxy. Every target had been secured ahead of schedule. Every objective had been met with minimal casualties. Open a channel to all galactic frequencies, she ordered. Her image appeared on billions of screens throughout the galaxy. Aliens who had spent the day celebrating humanity's extinction suddenly found themselves looking at a very much alive human admiral. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and steady. 1,000 years ago, you tried to destroy us. You believed you had succeeded. You celebrated our death and built your civilization on the belief that humanity was gone forever. She paused, letting her words sink in. You were wrong. We did not die. We did not surrender. We simply left, taking our time to grow stronger while you grew complacent. Today we have returned not as the weak creatures you remember, but as something far more dangerous. The camera pulled back to show the massive human fleet stretching into the distance. Thousands of ships, each one more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. You mocked our emotions, calling them weakness. But it was love for each other that kept us united during our long exile. You ridiculed our tendency to help others. But it was that same compassion that allowed us to build alliances with the species you oppressed. Hyun's expression hardened. You laughed at our stubborn refusal to surrender, not understanding that this same quality would ensure our return. We are humanity, and we do not forgive easily. But we are also capable of mercy for those who deserve it. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The celebration of humanity's extinction had become the announcement of their return. And this time, they were not refugees fleeing for their lives. They were conquerors offering terms. The Galactic Council chambers looked very different now. The celebration decorations had been hastily removed, replaced by emergency lighting and security barriers. The same aliens who had been laughing about human extinction just days before now sat in frightened silence, waiting to learn their fate. Admiral Minsu entered the chamber with a small delegation. Unlike the massive show of force that had conquered their military bases, this was a diplomatic mission. He walked calmly to the center podium where Ambassador Taemin had recently given his mocking speech about human weakness. Honored delegates, Minsu began, his voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. We meet under very different circumstances than your recent celebration. Ambassador Taemin tried to maintain his dignity, but his scales had turned pale with fear. You cannot simply attack the galactic government. There are laws, treaties, protocols that must be followed. Minsu smiled without warmth. You mean the same laws that you used to justify attacking Earth? The same treaties that you violated when you tried to commit genocide against my species? Those protocols? He activated a holographic display showing the official records of the human war. We have had 1,000 years to study your legal system. We know every law you broke, every treaty you violated, every protocol you ignored when you decided that humanity had to die. Dr. Young-A stepped forward from the human delegation. She was a xenobiologist who had spent centuries studying alien psychology, and she knew exactly how to address each species in the chamber. We are not here for revenge, she announced. We are here to offer you a choice. You can continue under the current system, knowing that humanity now has the power to oppose you at every turn. Or you can accept our proposal for a new way forward. Captain Dong-hyun activated another display, this one showing a map of the galaxy with different colored regions. Our intelligence networks have been active for centuries. We know which species are truly guilty of war crimes, and which ones were simply following orders. We know which governments are corrupt, and which ones genuinely serve their people. The display highlighted several systems in green. These are the species and worlds that have earned our respect. They will be offered full partnership in the new Galactic Confederation we propose to build. Other systems appeared in yellow. These are species that made mistakes but can be forgiven. They will be given the chance to prove they have changed. Finally, some systems appeared in red. And these are the ones who celebrated our extinction with particular enthusiasm. They will face justice for their crimes. Ambassador Taemin's scales had now turned completely white. His system was highlighted in bright red. What kind of justice? Asked Senator Quindar of the Granite Folk. His people had participated in the human war but had not been particularly cruel about it. Commander So Jin stepped forward. For decades she had worked within the Galactic Defense Force, documenting every crime and recording every conversation. Her evidence was overwhelming. For some, it will be trials for war crimes, she said. For others, it will be reparations paid to the species they oppressed. For a few, it will be exile to distant worlds where they can no longer harm others. She looked directly at Taemin. For those who showed particular cruelty, the punishment will match their crimes. You tried to erase humanity from existence. We will erase your government from power. President Lee Wan, the elected leader of the human diaspora, stepped to the podium. Unlike the military officers, she was a civilian who had spent her life building consensus among the scattered human fleets. But we are not here to rule over you, she said firmly. We have no desire to become the new oppressors. What we offer is a confederation based on voluntary cooperation, not forced submission. She activated a display showing the proposed structure of the new government. Each species would maintain control over their homeworlds and internal affairs, but major decisions affecting the galaxy would be made by a council where every species has an equal voice. Equal? Asked Representative Zilnoth of the Whisper Collective. Even the smallest species would have the same vote as the largest empires? Especially the smallest species, Lee Wan replied. The current system allows large empires to dominate smaller ones. That is how wars start. Our proposal ensures that every voice is heard. Ancient Keeper Wu Jin, who had been rescued from his isolation and brought to the proceedings, stood to address the chamber. His discovery of the truth about human extinction had made him a reluctant hero. I have studied galactic history for over 500 years, he said, his four eyes scanning the assembled delegates. I have seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. What always destroys them is the belief that they are superior to others. He gestured toward the human delegation. These beings have every right to seek revenge against us. We tried to murder their entire species. Instead, they offer us partnership. That shows a wisdom that our current leaders have never possessed. The debate continued for hours. Some species demanded guarantees of safety. Others wanted to know how the new system would be enforced. A few still insisted that humanity had no right to make demands. Admiral Ha-Un finally addressed this last group. You question our right to make demands? Very well. Let me show you something. The chamber's main display activated, showing a live view of space around the council chambers. Surrounding the station were thousands of human ships, their weapons powered but not yet aimed at any targets. We have the power to destroy every military installation in the galaxy within 6 hours, Ha-Un said calmly. We have agents in position to disable every communication network, every power grid, every transportation system. We could reduce your civilization to chaos without firing a shot. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. But we choose not to, she continued. Because we learned something during our 1,000-year exile. Destruction is easy. Building something better is hard. We prefer the hard path. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. That is what makes us different from you. When you had power, you used it to oppress others. When we have power, we use it to offer choices. The vote, when it finally came, was overwhelming. One by one, species after species voted to accept the human proposal. Some voted out of fear, others out of hope, but the result was the same. The Galactic Council that had ruled through force and intimidation was dissolved. In its place rose a new confederation based on cooperation and mutual respect. Ambassador Taemin was among the few who refused to accept the new order. As he was led away to face trial for war crimes, he spat one final insult at the humans. You think you have won, but you are still just emotional, weak creatures. This confederation will fall apart the moment you face real opposition, President. Lee Wan looked at him with something that might have been pity. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps we are still emotional creatures who care too much about others. Perhaps we are still stubborn beings who refuse to give up when things get difficult. She smiled. But those same qualities allowed us to survive 1,000 years in exile and return stronger than ever. If those are weaknesses, then we are proud to be weak. As Time In was taken away, the other delegates began the long process of building a new galaxy. It would not be easy. There would be conflicts and disagreements and moments when the whole system seemed ready to collapse. But for the first time in centuries, every species had a voice. Every world had a choice. And watching over it all was humanity, the species, that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from knowing when not to use your power. The galaxy had ridiculed Earth for 1,000 years. Now they remembered why they had always feared mankind. It was not because humans were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. It was because they never gave up, and they never forgot who they were. Even in exile, even in defeat, even facing extinction, humanity had remained human. And that, more than any weapon or technology, made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy, because they had something that no amount of power could destroy: hope.